Hello, 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 good morning and welcome. You are on the mountain with Rick and it is time for some Splinterlands. We're going to take a deep dive into death today and we're going to take a look at every single card that I own and go through them one by one and just give y'all a little information on decisions I had made, things that I feel like I could have done better, things that I feel like I did well, all with the added benefit of hindsight. I know a lot of creators right now are doing how I would spend X amount of money to build a deck in this game, and that is all well and good, and that is some great information and also very helpful. But I feel like this is a slightly different tack and might give a different viewpoint. So, without further ado, we're going to start off with alpha, beta, and promo cards, the ones that reward you just because of how old they are. We got Skeleton Assassin, Spineback Wolf, Undead Archer, and Corrupted Pegasus, each at a single copy, 1 BCX. Spineback Wolf was one of the very earliest cards that we picked up, and it was just because of that insane 6-speed with the reach when we were first starting to get into the game. Of course, I'm used to speed being everything in most games, so I very quickly realized how OP that 6 could be. Unfortunately, the 1 damage, the 3 health kind of render it not as useful with that 5 mana, especially when you consider the number of amazing reach monsters that are available on death. So I have probably earned back enough on Spineback Wolf from his alpha bonus to actually pay for the card, which means there's no loss there, and I'm still happy to have the option even though I very rarely use it. But I would probably not recommend for anybody starting out now to pick him up. He's just more expensive than he should be just because he's alpha, and you have much better, more effective options for the amount of money. Skeleton Assassin I actually recently picked up just to have another cheap sneak monster. Again, single BCX, he's only 1 damage. The 4 speed is nice, but of course the 2 health is kind of crap as well. I only use him in very niche situations, super low mana, when I just want to go ham on sneak monsters, and usually he's one of the worst that I run. So he is not a terrible pickup. I wouldn't recommend going hard trying to level him up because he is a lot more expensive on a per BCX ratio than a lot of the other good common sneak monsters. But as just having another option available to you for pretty cheap, I think he's not a bad way to go. Undead Archer, I actually pulled from an orb. Thank you, Matt Clark, for passing those out around the community. Very happy to have him. I haven't used him very much, but knowing that I have an Affliction at 2 mana is super helpful. And it's not the most commonly needed thing, but when you know that it's going to be a heal and match, then Affliction is always a good tool to have in your pocket. Corrupted Pegasus, of course, another one of those amazing reach monsters available to death. He gets so much better at the higher levels, but that's also why he is the most expensive card that can be pulled from an orb. This was actually given to us by Mr. Jim Morgan during a kind of difficult period. He told us to put it on the market. We did. It has not yet sold, so there it sits. Moving on to reward cards, we're starting to see the collection fill out a little bit. Vampire, I remember we got that early on. I think we won that on a giveaway, actually before I started my own channel. And I really have not used him very much. I've made him, kind of a home whenever I've had 5 mana left with 5 monsters in an equalizer rule set and I didn't have anything calling out to me for anything specific. That's kind of the only situation where I really reach for a vampire. He's kind of nifty, and if he levels up, then he does actually get pretty decent once you get the flying on there, and 4 damage, even 3 damage, so that he's healing too. But at the lower levels, until you get up to 5, he's really not very impressive whatsoever. And the fact that he never gains a health or an armor means he's really only viable whatsoever in the Equalizer rule set. So I just don't want to sink that many copies into something that has that niche. However, Undead Rex, on the other hand, I am actually super happy with. He's another one that is pretty niche, so I don't play him often. Mostly, we're only going to see him in a situation where it's back to basics, or where he can attack from somewhere other than the front line, because the lack of defensive abilities and no armor really hurts him, especially when you're laying out 9 mana. However, that 5 damage and that 9 health is still pretty nice. So if he can not be targeted, then he's very solid, especially if he's going Super Sneak or Melee Mayhem or Equal Opportunity. Then he can be a really good choice, especially if they pair up with reverse speed, because he is obviously quite slow as well. But if it's reverse speed, he's more likely than not going to hit, or only have a 10% miss chance, if anything. And that 5 damage, 9 health is definitely pretty strong. Also, back to basics rule set, under Oster. This is definitely a card that can perform surprisingly well, even at low BCX. The Phantasm is another one that is pretty good, but in all honesty, I think the Pelacor Deceiver is better. Phantasm was looking a lot better to me before the new reward cards from Chaos came out, because Pelacor Deceiver is just a monster. Phantasm is cool. Also getting the Retaliate, but he has the Return Fire as the difference as opposed to the Backfire. And I feel like the Backfire is honestly probably better, especially when you're looking at Flying Monster with a decent amount of speed. The Return Fire may or may not activate on based on your opponents and what they're doing. The Backfire has really more of an issue based on what you're doing. It's something that you have more control over by slowing your opponent and speeding yourself up and doing those kind of speed game shenanigans that are becoming more and more popular and important. So I feel like Phantasm is definitely not a card that is terrible, but it's also not the highest priority, because it's got a much cheaper alternative that is just as powerful and arguably more powerful. Nightmare is definitely a strong card to own at level 3. Not very expensive at 22 cents per BCX. Level 3 is going to take 14 of them, so it's a couple of bucks. But getting that extra speed on him is huge. Even at level 1, he's still pretty solid, but you definitely want to go to 2 for that second damage at 5 copies. That's $1 and some change. But he's definitely a very strong monster, and as he progresses throughout those levels, he gets up to being insanely fast, and he picks up phase. So this is one that is definitely worth considering building in the long run, especially if you want a solid tank and you're going to be looking at wild play more than modern, because you do have to remember that he is going to rotate out next summer whenever Rebellion comes out. Pelacor Deceiver we already talked about. We're going to go ahead and max him out already. Sorry, we already did go ahead and max him out in gold, along with all of the other gold monsters. We have Ever Hungry Skull that we have received a couple of. He's not super high up on our priority list, but he is definitely a good one to have. He is also pretty niche. You really are looking for him more in a equalizer situation, or a weak magic situation. He has a couple of niche situations where he really shines. Other than that, that 1 health is just, it's a deal breaker in a lot of cases. So kind of be wary on Ever Hungry Skull. He's definitely good to have, but it should not be your first priority in my opinion. Boogeyman is absolutely worth having a copy of. I love having a slow on a 2 magic damage monster, and this is at a single BCX. He is worth the 6 mana. He does pick up Rust and Demoralize as well. It does not gain any additional damage. Gets a bunch more hit points and a couple more speed. Honestly, out of all of that, the Demoralize and the hit points would be the only thing I really care about, but I'm not interested enough to go 115 BCX deep. There's really nothing else I want to pick up here, so I will continue to happily play my Boogeyman at 1 BCX, even in situations where doing so costs me some rewards, because it still beats not having the Boogeyman available, and that slow is super important, especially when you have the opportunity to run teams like Boogeyman, Ooze, Lyra, and Supply Runner to give a 4 speed differential to something like a Nightmare, and that can really be an insane change to the way things are working. Or, you know, run it under Thisbug and put that same speed differential on Pellicor Deceiver, so all of a sudden I've got flying with effectively 9 speed, backfire, and phase. And if you do happen to hit me, well, I might just hit you back anyways. Like, there's a lot of strong opportunities in the depth team that just require that 1 BCX Boogeyman. Octopider is another one that I'm content with him where he is right now. It's a very solid card with that 3 range damage and 8 hit points. Adding the Demoralize really just made it that much sweeter. I don't intend to take him any further. They are a little bit more expensive per BCX because it's an older card, but I'm very happy with him where he is. And again, occasionally I might take a penalty for using him, but I will take that penalty because I like the card enough. The same is true with the Grim Reaper. This one's receiving a little bit less play now that I have more Affliction in other cards, but again, with the 3 damage ranged, and he's got only 6 mana. Most of my other 3 damage range creatures are 7 and 8. So I love the number of 3 damage range creatures that I am getting out of Death now, especially now that I've got the Soul Strangler up to also being 3 damage. We'll see him here in a few pages, but Grim Reaper is being a little less used now because of that 3 health and the 2 speed. So he's definitely a great one to have, and he does get a little better as you level him up, but I'm not really intrigued to go that far in on him. I don't think that Oppress or Piercing are all that worthwhile. I'd be more interested in taking him to 3 and then leaving him there just to get that 4th damage. I think that is worthwhile. But it is not my highest priority. Venari Bonesmith, getting him to level 4 absolutely was a priority in gold. That poison is a game changer for you. I would also recommend taking him up to level 6 to get that 2nd damage, and then of course max out to get that dispel, all very helpful. So I would definitely keep your eye on Venari Bonesmith, and remember that these guys are just about to go out of print, so your window to pick them up for cheap is closing. Shadowy Presence is another one that I would love to level up fully, but he's just gotten kind of expensive. And 1 BCX is great. It's the only 4 HP monster that I know of for 1 mana, which makes him a beautiful chump tank. And he does get Strengthen and Inspire at the later levels, which is just amazing to me. I would love to be able to actually knock out 46 copies of Shadowy Presence for that Inspire, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. It is definitely not high priority for me. Revealer definitely is. This stun is fantastic on a magic monster at 1 BCX. It's one of your very few options in the modern format to have a stun at 1 BCX at all. I think it was actually your only option before Rift Watchers. So that alone makes him very worthwhile. But the fact that as you level him up, you get another magic damage and then you get immunity is huge. Immunity is huge. If you don't have any immunity monsters, you are not realizing how much of a game changer it is for you. He is absolutely worth taking to level 3 to get the second magic damage, and then he is worth taking to level 4 to get the immunity. I'm not really too keen on taking him to 5, but when I can make the leap and go to 6, absolutely that reflection shield is also going to be massive. So I can run him in position 5 next to the Night Ghoul in position 6, and he doesn't have to worry about taking any blast damage. Harklaw is probably my single favorite tank in the game right now. Shield and immunity and demoralize, all three of those working beautifully together, especially under the death summoners of Oster Rotwell and Thaddeus Brood, which attack your opponent's ability to effectively deal magic damage to you. Harklaw is just a brilliant kit to put together with them, and especially in those poison matches where you can actually put him behind some other tanks, put him in position 3 with Revealer in position 4, and then protect them from sneak damage, whatnot. By the time Harklaw actually starts taking any damage from the opponent, the poison will have almost entirely knocked out their team. So he is definitely going to be a strong contender in any one of those poison matches you come across, but he is not limited to that, thankfully. On to Untamed. Here you can see we don't actually have all that much. We started playing kind of right as we ran out of Untamed, so everything here is single BCX, and out of it all, the only thing that I really play a lot is the Gorladon. Once again, reaching into that, see what I did there? Reaching into the depth of Death's Offerings at the second position reach melee monster slot. We've definitely got a depth of lineup there, and it's a beautiful thing. Gorladon is one of my favorites. However, he is quickly actually falling in place to some of our new offerings that we have received. I did promise card by card, so Maggots is another one that I actually do use once in a while just because opportunity is gross. The Scavenge would make him very useful, especially since he's already picked up a second damage and a second HP at that point, and some speed as well. So I could see an argument for him at 6, but 99 more BCX of an Untamed card, even though it's a cheaper one, that's 38 cents per copy, 37 cents per copy. It's going to be a very expensive card to try and max out or even get to the point of usability. So I've got a single BCX for the option to play, because it's still better than not having the option, but I'm not looking to level that up at all. Cursed Slime Ball, I would really like to get up to level 6 to get that redemption. Again, with the cost per BCX being over 30 cents, it's just a little difficult. I mean, we can get a level 3 14 BCX at 26 cents per. So that's helpful. Actually, that's really helpful. I might go ahead and actually purchase that before I post this video live. That's gonna be something we're gonna go ahead and take a note of. Okay, now we have a giant scorpion. This one I don't actually think I may have ever played. That's why it's only 12 cents for the single BCX. He does get thorns and poison, but I still... Actually, you know, he could be a really good tank for Little League. That is something that I feel like Death kind of lacks. So 400 copies at 12 cents would be 48 bucks. That... Let's say, actually, let's see. Because maxed out... Yeah, it looks like there's not even any... You'd have to spend a lot to be combining enough to get there. So, I could see an argument for getting Giant Scorpion and working him up. Dark Astronomer I like because of the 2 range damage for relatively cheap. He's also got 4 HP. Worth 38 cents a piece. He does get Shatter, which is also great. However, we do have the Shatter on the Weirding Warrior at 3 mana. So it's really, I feel like his next super improvement isn't until 8. I mean, yes, level 7, he's where he gets the extra damage, but that's... I wouldn't want to go to level 2. I wouldn't want to go to level 3. And I would go to 4 if anywhere, but again, we've already got that Shatter. I don't really need 2 copies of it at 3 and 4 mana. The Blind is really the only place where I want to go with it, and I don't want to go to 115 copies for that. Bone Golem is another rather niche card when you know your opponent's going to be running some magic and you have both Death and Melee available, then it really becomes a good way to counter a strong magic team, especially when you run it under either Thaddeus or Oster. But really, I find it tough to argue why I want to level him all the way up as opposed to spending that money so much more effectively leveling up cards in the newer sets. Like, I'm not saying that he's not worth leveling up. He absolutely is. He's going to be a very strong contender once you get him up to being able to self-repair with 3 armor, 8 hit points, still having 3 damage, although the next level he gets 4. I mean, at level 6, he's a beast. The knockout, meh. I mean, he is going to be 1 speed all the way through, so at least you're going to get the benefit of that knockout after your stunner has gone, because he will be the last one attacking, but he's still the last one attacking, which is never a good thing. Reverse speed, of course, does help because he stays at 1 all the way, but... And reverse speed is where your opponent's more likely to be using their magic as well. To a point. So he's definitely worth having. Again, I have no plans to take him beyond single BCX. Death Elemental, I absolutely love this card. I want to get him to silence. I want to get him to weaken, but for more than $1 per BCX, I just cannot justify that. And I'm not really super hype on level 2 or level 3. Actually, level 3 is pretty big. Speed is always nice, especially on your magic snipe monster. But, and then of course level 6 also really strong with that second magic damage. But, again, I'm glad I've got 1, and I use him very frequently. Actually, He's probably my second most used on this page. I'd say Gorlodon is the most used, Death Elemental second, Bone Golem's third, Dark Astronomer's probably fourth. Contessa. I remember when I was new in the game seeing Contessa for $3.50 per BCX and asking my guild if that was a good pickup. I also remember seeing her at almost $80 per BCX and cursing out my old guildmates for not telling me to pick her up. But I went elsewhere with that investment since I hadn't heard back from them after an hour or so, and I was still really new and did not understand gold cards yet or levels of summoners. But in all honesty, at $14, 15, you could put together a level 4 Contessa for $60 in gold. That's not terrible at either. That would be a really strong play. That would be a really strong play. Alrighty, on to dice. Well, we have one card in dice, and it's probably the most important of them. Oster Rotwell. I would love to get him maxed out. Sorry about that. Okay. So, 115 copies for max will run you back $300. It is not cheap, to be sure. We've only got 5, and we put them together for significantly less than he costs now. But the level 2, happy to have. I would much rather be able to get him at least up to 3 to be able to carry my Harklaw at level 2, because that's kind of a huge deal. And then 5 would be even better to be able to carry my Harklaw at level 3 to take advantage of the Demoralize as well. So I don't use him as much as I used to because of the levels there, and he is obviously quite expensive to get up to par with the rest. In terms of Gladius cards, you'll hear this all the way through the series. Obviously, every one of them has been pulled from a pack because that's the only way to get Gladius. The only one I've been able to use is Coachifus Bane because I only do gold-only brawls. So we have not really had much of an opportunity to even mess around with any of the other guys. Chaos Legion is where we start to see a little bit of completion. We've got all of the commons and rares in gold. We've got pretty much all of the epics and legendaries, at least a couple of BCX. Carrion Shade is one that I throw out there every once in a while and am always surprised by how well he does his job. Because even at single BCX in gold, just the 2 speed and the flying, and I mean, he often will take 2 hits effectively, because he'll catch a miss a lot more frequently than you would think that he actually should. And then there's absolutely no reason to level him up to 2. Like, you literally get nothing from it whatsoever. So that's why I really haven't messed with him at all. I've considered going to level 5 for that 3rd speed, but not really. I mean, the infrequency with which I use him relegates that fairly unsubstantial. And then the 2 damage at level 7, I don't even care about. The amount of time that Carrion Shade gets to attack is insignificant. So honestly, the thing with leveling him up past level 3 for the gold version, or even level 1 for the regular version, I think you do want to get him to 3 to get the flying. But you honestly don't want to go to level 5 and get that extra speed, because he's kind of at his best in reverse speed matches, where he can be slow and flying and therefore dodge a lot. So I really like carrying Shade at 1 BCX in gold. Also, that way you're earning that 10% bonus when you use him, and he's extremely cheap because he's not a very well-loved card. Riftwing, on the other hand, Riftwing is a little bit more expensive to build because everybody knows Riftwing is amazing. We've got Flying, Scavenger, and Backfire already, even only at level 5. And then once we start pushing into max gold, diamond territory, then we get Headwinds, and we also get a 5th speed, and we even get all the way up to 8 HP before the Scavenge starts taking effect. Riftwing is amazing for a card that does not deal any damage on its own. It will win you a lot of games, especially in rule sets like Poison, where everything is taking damage and a lot of monsters are dying, and your Riftwing can just sit there and soak damage so that the rest of your team survives. He is super helpful, and I definitely recommend building a Riftwing if you don't already have one. Shadow Snitch is another one of those excellent reach monsters that we have been alluding to for the Death team. I absolutely love having access to Shadow Snitch. I'm glad I got him up to level 6 to get the Affliction. I don't really see going much further with him until I can go all the way to max and get the dodge. I don't think it's worth 11 copies for the extra damage. I really don't think that it's worth 5 copies for the extra speed, and then the extra health would be nice, but really all of that only matters to, it matters in aggregate, and it would be worth taking to max, but I'm not going any further until I can just max it out to get that dodge. And that being said, it's also not my highest priority, because he is not my best source of Affliction. He is not my best reach monster. But having a reach monster with Affliction is pretty nice. Crypt Beetle, another one that we love for low mana. This actually is often our tank for Little League if we're running Death. It'll either be Crypt Beetle or the Zenith Monk, usually. He does get up to 3 damage when you can get him max level, which is really good for a 3 mana tank. He gets up to 4 armor and 5 health with the shield, which is definitely relevant, especially if you have a very niche mana battle such as Little League and Lost Magic. That would definitely be a situation where Crypt Beetle would shine and might honestly just about be a victory by itself, if you can put any kind of team behind it, that is. The Silent Shavi is absolutely phenomenal in every sense of the word. Silent Shavi is an amazing card that you should have and you should be leveling up. He gets Piercing at max level, he gets Cripple at level 6. The Cripple is less important to me because my only max level summoner, my primary death summoner, is down. So obviously it's less important in that situation because he's going to have it either way. But the fact that he gets that 3rd damage at level 3, and then really all he gains along the way until level 9 is the a little bit of speed and a little bit of health. It's still good, but you're looking for that 4th damage, and you're looking for the additional speed from level 5. I don't care as much about level 4. I don't care as much about level 6 or level 7. It's all about the speed and the damage. Soul Strangler is another one I'm super happy I just leveled up. This is the cheapest one of our 3 damage ranged cards. And at only 3 mana, even with the 2 hit points, I love this card. I play him a lot now that I've gotten that 3rd damage. I didn't play him much when he was 3 for 2. Because I have another 3 for 2 in Grenadier, and honestly, when I had them both like that at single BCX, Grenadier was the better card, even though Strangler was level 2. Now that I've got that 3rd damage on him, Soul Strangler is seeing a lot more play, and I cannot wait to get him maxed out and pick up that poison ability, and that 4th damage for 3 mana is just insane. That is so much value. Life Sapper, another must-have card for a well-built death deck, I feel. He is super strong with the Life Leech ability and the fact that it is a magic damage, meaning that it is less likely to get blocked by armor or anything like that. So you are guaranteed to actually get that health. The fact that he doesn't get a 3rd magic damage is kind of a bummer, especially being in Death where we don't have a summoner that will do that. So he will not get 2 health per turn off of his Life Leech. But the redemption is also pretty nice, although kind of counterintuitive because Life Leech is trying to make sure that you stay alive throughout the game. Redemption is punishing your opponent for killing you early, but redemption is better the earlier you die. So they're kind of a non-bow. I do see that. He's definitely worth taking up to level 4 to get that 2nd HP. After that, that 2nd damage. After that, kind of personal taste, I'm not as keen on him going to max as some others. Dampier Stalker is absolutely incredible. True Strike is a very underrated ability, and the fact that he brings that with 4 damage increases to 5 damage at the max level, and if you're hitting something like, I don't know, the most popular tank in the game right now, Coral Lurker, well, not only are you guaranteed to hit it, but when you do, you're gonna do double damage. Oh wait, no, that's Death Blow, that is not Giant Killer. But still, anytime you have an opportunity to do double damage, it's an amazing thing. When you have that opportunity to do double damage combined with not having the ability to miss, it does become a lot more valuable. And that 5, huge. Also, valid reason to have a level 7 copy, to not take level 8, because Force Field is a thing. So both level 7 and level 8 are extremely valuable. Although, in all honesty, for level 7, I probably wouldn't go to 7. I'd probably just stop at 5. Because you don't really need that extra speed you've already got True Strike. And then that extra health is nice, so you could stop at 6, but I don't know if it's actually worth 4 more copies. I mean, that's a whole level 4. So I would say probably the best thing to do in terms of just building your deck out, probably actually stop at level 5 on Dampier Stalker. That's probably what I'm going to do. Not really actually looked at that hard before, but that is the most likely thing. Cursed Windeku, one of the best tanks in the game, and if you don't have access to a Heartclaw, this is going to be your bread and butter for death, especially once you get them to level 5. You got Thorns and you've got Heal. You've got a decent amount of physical damage. You've got decent speed. It could definitely be improved, but the problem here is no armor. That kind of sucks because it does eliminate the possibility of being assisted by repair monsters. That is the one thing that this card is really lacking, in my opinion. We do get an additional slow here at max level, which is huge. I do want to take my Windeku to max level for that slow and that fourth damage. Absolutely. That is one of the priorities to get him all the way up there and get that super speed changing meta going under my Dallin. Thaddeus Brood, of course, a wonderful summoner. Y'all know all of my Chaos Legion summoners are gold, so my Thaddeus is only level 3. I really need to get him significantly higher because he can't use most of my cards at all to their fullest extent, and that's part of what has been holding me back. Magi Necrosi is a wonderful tool. I love having snipe and magic damage, as we mentioned earlier. And having access to 2 of them on the same team is certainly helpful. The camouflage is an added benefit, making sure that Magi Necrosi will help to stay alive to actually continue to do damage for you. He does get a press at level 4, which is meh. I'm more impressed by level 3. That third magic damage does mean a lot. And then he gets stun at max level, which, in all honesty, I probably would just skip from 3 to 6. And I wouldn't worry about building him in between there. So if you're in silver or gold, build him to level 3. And then stop until you're in diamond and build them to level 6. You'll also notice that that is pretty much the first card that we have looked at in a little while that we're not playing only in gold. Insidious Warlock is one that we have not actually had very much experience with at all. We kind of just acquired him recently. I do like the fact that he gets the second damage at level 2. That is hugely relevant for a recharge monster. I actually have not used him. I think I've used him once because recharge and 1 magic damage at 5 mana just doesn't feel like it's got any chutzpah to me. The blind, however, coming in at level 4, that's tasty. I do like the Insidious Warlock at level 4, so that's going to be something I'm going to look more into acquiring for that speed team that we were just mentioning earlier. The Weirding Warrior is the other range shatter that I was referring to earlier, which is actually 1 speed faster and has it at a single BCX. I love the Weirding Warrior. I like him at level 3, getting that second damage. That's cool. Even level 2, getting the additional speed to shatter first is worthwhile. Level 4, level 5, I'm not as sure about because I've already got a bunch of Amplify in black, but it's still probably going to be really good to have another Amplify available super cheap. And then at max level, he gains Rust, which I feel is kind of counterintuitive to the Shatter. It makes it a lot less important, really. So it does a good thing in that you can get rid of their armor to the point where it can't be repaired, because you can take their armor down to 0. And then you don't need to shatter. And it still backs that up with the shatter in the event that, like, they brought something to say along the lines of a Legionnaire Alvar or a Ever-Hungry Skull that just has oodles and oodles of armor. You can go ahead and still get some use out of it that way. But I feel like, in all honesty, he kind of shines at level 3 and then maybe level 4, depending on what other options you have for Amplify in Death. Moving on to Jin Moirat. This is a very recent acquisition for me. I've only just picked him up last week, and I think I've only played him in 1 or 2 games. I'm still figuring out how to best use him because he could be your frontline tanker, although that's not the best way to use him. That void armor, making sure that magic will hit the armor before the HP, and giving him an actual pool of 11 hit points is pretty nice. And the fact that he is magic damage as well is also very nice. But I feel like he is not going to be the one that you want in the first position or even the second position. I feel like his best spot is third position tank. So you have, because of the fact that he's magic, he is able to attack throughout the entire time, and then your opponent still has to go through 2 main tanks before they can get to him. And especially once he gets to 2 and gets that giant killer, gets to 3, gets that third magic damage and the magic reflect, and then he gets a force field at 4, like, that is just insane growth on this card. Every single level is huge, and I'm looking forward to growing him over some time. Corpse Fiend, as is the case with all of the other fiends, is not worth taking to level 2 or 3. He is absolutely worthwhile at level 1. He is absolutely worthwhile at level 4. Anytime you have access to a 0 mana card, it's good for at least taking a shot. But even with 3 speed or 2 HP, it's still not good for much else than taking 1 shot. So I would not waste your time and effort leveling him up to 2 or 3. Although once you can put a viable ability onto that 0 cost monster, now all of a sudden it goes from great to absolutely spectacular, because now it can not only take a shot for you, it can also help your team. And silence is an ability that is definitely meta relevant always, because magic is super strong. Lyra the Dark, I actually picked up last night. We took her straight to level 3. Actually, we picked up a level 3 copy, adding yet another 3 damage archer to our lineup, and most importantly, bringing us another swiftness. We have only had a chance to use her in a couple of games yet, so we don't have a super strong opinion on her yet. Snare is going to be cool, but I feel like that's going to be best used in Earthquake rule sets, where I'm kind of loath to use Lyra to begin with anyways. But we'll see how effective that actually is. And it's one of those kind of things that you're going to forget about most of the time, but when it matters, all of a sudden it really matters, and it's going to be beautiful. 6 speed is phenomenal. I love that. She is going to be my backline plug a lot of the time. Just to force misses on melee and ranged sneak monsters. Of course, magic sneak does exist, but it's still pretty rough. And the swiftness takes her to 7, which is great. The fact that she's got opportunity, also really cool. I would very much like to play Lyra and Ra in a blast rule set. I feel like that is going to be very fun, especially with something along the lines of Boogeyman and Supply Runner and, say, Nightmare up front. There's just a lot of speed in the Death Team. And then, last but not least, we have Rift Watchers. And here we see, once again, we've got all of the commons and the rares. We've got all but one of the rares in gold. Night Ghoul we absolutely love. I want to get him up to max level. That force field is going to be so important. And since we're already at 5 damage, of course we want to take him to 6. And we do like that 3 speed, the 6 armor, the 11 health. I think all of that is just beautiful. And we know that even with a lot of the times we're playing him, we're not getting any damage out of him. Those opportunities where we do, we want to make sure that we are hitting as hard as possible with him. So I do absolutely intend to max out my Night Ghoul in gold, my Arachne Thug as well. We got her to level 5 already because trample on a reach creature is amazing, even without the trample rule set. But when you have a trample monster that is not the one taking damage from your opponent's team, and is protected a little bit and is still able to trample, it just makes it that much more likely that she gives you a little bit of extra damage. And at 3 per turn, even as a single BCX gold, or at level 3 if you're in the regular foils, she gains that additional damage pretty quickly. She finishes out with 4 at max, and we've got knockout as well in case you have a stun that is going before her. That is going to be a little more difficult to arrange at 4 speed, but the fact that she's also got 7 hit points and 4 armor, I am very, very taken by this card. I feel like there's a lot of people that are underrating her ability to contribute to your win rate with the Death Team. Kabbalist is another great card that I'm super happy to have, especially when playing a lot of Cursed Windeku, because Amplify is stupidly powerful. And you only need 1 BCX for Amplify, which is stupidly powerful, which makes this card great out of the gate. However, you've also got Giant Killer, and a 3rd magic damage, and a 4th magic damage, and a Demoralize. So this card just keeps getting more and more useful over time. We also get up to 4 speed. We pretty much stay at 5 health. The only time we're not 5 HP is when we lose 1 and drop down to 4 at level 4 because we gained the 3rd magic damage. I don't actually care for this card a crazy amount at level 4 because of that. I feel like while that 1 damage is worth it, I'd really rather just make the jump straight to 7. Other than that, I do feel like I'm okay with actually taking every single level of this card bit by bit, but I do want to get it all the way up to max. That 4th magic damage is super important, and that Demoralize is definitely something I want to have access to more of. Because also, here in a melee mayhem or super sneak match where we feel like it's our opponent is more likely going to be putting out a bunch of melee, then we do have melee on, or we have Demoralize on Harklaw, we have Demoralize on Octopider, we have Demoralize on Kabbalist, and we could also run Disintegrator. So we could have 4 sources of Demoralize in one, and a tank that's dealing Thorns damage. That means every time you hit me, you are taking more damage than I am. Unfortunately, we can't put all of that together in the ideal rule set because Kabbalist is magic and Octopider is ranged. So the ideal rule set for that would, of course, be melee only. But it's still a very, very solid team in melee only. We got Queen of Crows is next. We are going to be picking her up in gold. That's why we haven't leveled her up at all in regular foil. That Headwinds is definitely something we are looking forward to. Another slow as well. And Return Fire is just going to be some icing on the cake. we do intend to max her out because we want to have yet another 3 damage archer. And the fact that she's got the close range means that in this opportunity, or in the situation in which we want to use her, is where there's no. I've never actually seen this particular combination of rule sets, but a no magic, no melee rule set would be amazing for Queen of Crows to be in your front line and all your even stronger archers behind, and she is just going to destroy. Having the close range, having the headwinds, having the return fire, and the slow, like, she is just going to roll faces, and I am here for it. Card is beautiful, and I can't wait to max it. Dallin, my first ever maxed summoner, and y'all are sleeping on that boy. Raw, we pulled from the last Rift Watchers pack that we bought, and I'm pretty happy with him. I don't use him super often because the scatter shot with the 12 mana means that, you know, he is very expensive and semi-unreliable, but in certain circumstances, he is absolutely amazing. The fact that he's flying definitely helps, but not as much as you would think because he's still only 2 speed, and, well, scattershot doesn't mean that he can fire from the front. The 7 HP is nice. Really, I think he gets a lot better when you get him to level 2. I have not done that yet, as you can tell. That 8th HP is pretty nice. Not really super relevant, but the giant killer absolutely is. And then the rust, I feel, is more important on Raw than any of the other cards that we've looked at in Death where we've seen it. I feel like it makes a lot more sense on somebody who's got Scattershot and Double Strike and range damage. Like, he's going to be able to clear the way for his own shots to land more often than not. And then, of course, getting that 4th damage at max level is also huge. Definitely going to make a big difference because that is 8 damage per turn now. And with the giant killer, it is a potential of 12 to 16 damage per turn. If, say, they only have 1 creature left and it's a giant, you're definitely going to be hitting them twice. So I really feel like Raw is an excellent contender for pushing all the way and leveling up fully.